So that was how to create a subdomain. That's how to do redirects in Nginx. That was talking about gzip, how to adjust your compression and what compression is. Now we're going to dive into it. Now we're going to start writing some code. And now we get to do probably what I consider one of the most fun things, which is WebSockets. I think WebSockets are so much fun. WebSockets are real-time communication. It's a persistent bidirectional connection between the client and the server. How is that different from HTTP?
HTTP is one way, and it doesn't persist.
Yeah, it doesn't persist. So the minute the HTTP connection is done, it closes. Whereas WebSockets stay open, they persist. So you can enable real-time communication between the client and the server. So for this exercise, we're going to update our Nginx configuration because it's got to know it's a WebSocket connection or what to do with it. We need to create a new Node.js server, but this time we're going to use Express to make things a little bit faster. And then we're going to enable WebSockets. And we might have to write a little bit of HTML for this one too. I know, HTML. Maybe a little bit of JavaScript in our HTML too. Let's see, let's see. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go into our default server. You remember where that was located? /etc, Nginx, sites, enabled, full stack front end, FSFE, our default server. You'll know you're in the right place if you go to the default server. So I'll do that now. So sudo vi/etc, Nginx, sites, enabled, full stack front end. And here I'm in my default server. Next, I want to adjust the location block down here. So we're just going to jump into insert mode here. And we're going to add some more directives. First thing we're going to say is we're going to proxy. And we're going to set a header. So that means when we proxy a connection, we're just going to add a header to that. And we want to say it's an upgrade. Upgrade. Because WebSockets are considered an upgrading the connection. It's not just HTTP. WebSockets do run over HTTP, but it's an upgrade to it. So it's a little add-on. So we have to tell Nginx to add that header so Node.js knows what to do. Next, we're going to set another header to the proxy itself, or to the connection itself, not just the HTTP request. So we're going to set another header. And the connection is an upgrade. That's it. Not too bad. I remember earlier someone asked, like, why do we use Nginx instead of Node? And I'm saying you could use Node, but Nginx just makes this much easier. So 2 lines, we added the ability to have WebSockets to our, at least connecting to WebSockets. We still need to enable them with our server. And of course, we command write quits. And it's good practice to double check our configuration. Syntax looks OK. So now we can restart Nginx. Great. But it's still not going to do anything. It's just saying Nginx has the ability to handle WebSockets. We still need to create a server to do this for us. So now we can jump back to our laptops. We can jump out of the server, or you can do this on the server if you want. Totally up to you. You might be a little faster coding, not in VI. I'm not going to judge you either way. So we're going to create a new server. And this time we're going to use something called Express. Express is probably the most popular Node server out there. I like it because there's tons of documentation. It's relatively fast. It's been around for a long, long time. So you can't go wrong using Express if you're saying, like, what sort of Node server should I write? And the reason why we're using Express is because the things we're going to have to do get a little more complicated than that simple server we wrote the other a little bit earlier, which was just Node with no other libraries. Express is just going to make dealing with WebSockets a little bit easier. Is there a question there?
I was just curious your opinion on Fastify.
Fastify is fine. Is that the one that's more API driven? I forget. I think of a different library.
A lot of people have been saying since Express isn't maintained too much, Best Buy is kind of picking up steam. But anyways, go ahead.
I have not looked at
I
Fastify.
was curious.
Yes, we could. I mean, I think for learning, Express is probably the best because it's been around for so long. You're not going to do anything that hasn't already been done before that you can't find an answer on Stack Overflow. And that's part of what goes into software engineering is like, can you find answers when you need it? It's all great to be on the bleeding edge of, front-end masters.js, the hottest new Node framework. But if nobody else uses it and you can't look it up, then, you might run into trouble unless you really know what you're doing.
Programming is a team sport.
Programming is a team sport. So I will let you get that far. And then I'm going to jump into the code itself. And we're going to write a WebSocket connection. I'm going to use VS Code for this one. But we'll write it all together versus me just telling you to copy things. And you're like, why am I doing this? That's not the way to learn. The way to learn is to actually write it out yourself rather than just trust me that it works. So if you're still writing, that's okay. I'm going to show you. I'm going to write this code myself so you can just follow along. But I like to give you a chance to write the code and think about it a little bit. Because if you're coding and writing, it's really hard to pay attention sometimes. So I have a link here in the slides to the WebSocket example. We're going to write through it, but just in case you can't keep up or you have to go to the restroom or something like that, we have the fully baked example here on GitHub. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new VS Code. Which one do I want? New window. There we go. I'm going to open a terminal here. Next, I want to, because we're actually coding for the server, but I don't want to write this on VI. I'm not that fast at VI. I'm going to write in the terminal that I'm comfortable with. I'm going to clone the repo that I made earlier. So git clone. I'm just going to do this in VS Code. In the wrong directory. So I'm going to move into my projects directory. Now I'm going to git clone. That should be the right place. cd gemstack, lol, and let's do this a lazy way. Open a new code editor. There, I should have just done it all on my terminal. Don't judge me. I get there eventually, even if it's not the most efficient way. So we already created our package.json earlier, not a whole lot in it. We have our old server called app.js, remember this one. Hand-built, no express, very, very simple. Let's create a new file, and I'll call it index, index.ws, WebSocket. So now I'm going to write the server blocks that you just wrote before, or the server. So I'm going to use express, require, express. We're writing a server. So we're going to require that HTTP. And we can just shortcut it by saying create server. Now let's create a new app. That's just the Express app. We're going to execute it, then assign the server to app. So we need to create a route, just a basic route. So we'll say on any requests that come in to /get, we want to respond. We can use a function, remember, request response. And close that off. And all we want to do is just respond with an index.html file. We haven't written that file yet, but we know now that HTML is pretty forgiving, so we can just touch index.html and add a hello world in there. But for now, I want to use the send file command because that one's one of the easier ways of sending back a static index or a static HTML file. But as always, we need to say where this file is located. And it's located in the root, which we have to specify. So the root is here. We're going to use dir name, which is a reserved name in Node.js, but it just says what's the directory in right now. It's a shorthand for doing that. And then we actually have to make the server respond to our request. So we can say server dot on request. And we're just going to assign the app, that Express server that we created. We're just going to make that respond to all our requests via the HTTP server. And of course, we got to listen somewhere, give it a port. So we're going to say server listen port 3000, just our default there. And we give it a function, just a callback when it does listen. And we're just going to say console log. Server started on port 3000. And I just close it off for giggles. And the last thing we need to do before we error out from it, can't find the file, let's just create an index.html file. Index.html. Say WebSocket example. Right. Let me just open my terminal. And let's go ahead and run this application. So to run it, node index ws.js, and something's wrong. Cannot find module express. Oh, I forgot to npm install express. Common mistake. So npm I express. And now let's give it a shot. And we'll navigate to our browser here. And we're going to localhost 3000. There we go. So in this course, you've already created so many different types of servers: an Ubuntu server, a Node server, an Express server. Servers are all around. But again, servers aren't that hard to create. It's getting to the details of what that server is supposed to do and locking it down properly. That's where the tricks come in.